The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. Only 6 years after Hiroshima, audiences in 1951 were still grappling with the dawn of the atomic age. Into this climate arrived The Day the Earth Stood Still, directed by Robert Wise, a film that looked like pulp sci-fi but carried the weight of a sermon. Its story was simple. Klaatu, a humanoid alien, lands in Washington with his towering robot, Gort. Unlike the usual bug-eyed invaders, he doesn't come to destroy, but to warn. If humanity cannot control its violence in the nuclear age, it will be eliminated for the safety of the galaxy. The production was modest, even awkward. Gort's stiff movements and the glowing flying saucer drew chuckles from some viewers. Yet Bernard Herrmann's eerie theremin score transformed the images into something haunting, almost spiritual. Michael Rennie, who played Klaatu, later remarked that the role was a conscience-given form. The turning point arrives when Klaatu delivers his famous ultimatum: join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration. In the shadow of the Cold War, the line resonated like few others. Some critics dismissed the film as preachy, but many recognized its unusual depth. Looking back, the movie's effects may appear quaint, even cheesy. Creature from the Black Lagoon, 1954. In 1954, Universal Pictures introduced what would become its last great monster, the Gill Man. Creature from the Black Lagoon, directed by Jack Arnold, combined horror, adventure, and science fiction in a way that thrilled audiences and filled drive-ins across America. The story follows scientists exploring the Amazon, where they discover a prehistoric creature surviving in a hidden lagoon. What begins as scientific curiosity soon turns into a struggle between man and monster. Yet unlike other atomic age beasts, the Gill Man wasn't purely a villain. His loneliness and displacement made him strangely sympathetic. The design of the costume was extraordinary for its time. Created by Millicent Patrick, it allowed stuntman Riku Browning to perform long underwater sequences that remain striking even today. Still, the bulging eyes and stiff mask sometimes gave the creature an unintentionally comical look, the kind of detail that makes modern audiences smile while still admiring the craftsmanship. What gave the film power was its reflection of the era's anxieties. The Gill Man represented the dangers of disturbing nature, of probing too far into the unknown. In an age of nuclear testing and rapid scientific discovery, that message was clear. Browning later recalled, "When you're in that suit, you stop being yourself. You're the monster." His dedication turned the camp into something haunting. Them, 1954. In the same year, another kind of creature terrified audiences, not from the depths of the Amazon, but from the fallout of the desert. Them was Warner Brothers' answer to the nation's growing unease about atomic testing, and it introduced the first true big bug movie. The plot was startling in its simplicity. Nuclear radiation in New Mexico spawns giant ants who begin a deadly march toward civilization. Soldiers, scientists, and ordinary citizens band together to stop them. What could have been laughable turned into one of the decade's most effective thrillers. The ants themselves, built as full-scale animatronic props, were stiff and mechanical, yet their sheer size and eerie screeches unsettled audiences. Critics noted that while the premise bordered on absurd, the serious tone of the film gave it unexpected weight. The Los Angeles Times praised it as more gripping than it has any right to be. Beneath the spectacle was a potent metaphor. Radiation, invisible and uncontrollable, had become the great terror of the era. The ants embodied those fears. Ordinary creatures turned monstrous by forces mankind barely understood. The film ends not with triumph, but with a chilling reminder: if it happened once, it could happen again. Though later, big bug films would lean heavily into camp, Them struck a balance that made it unforgettable. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Few films of the atomic age captured paranoia quite like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Released in 1956 and directed by Don Siegel, it took a modest budget and turned it into one of the most enduring allegories of its time. The story unfolds in a small California town, where residents are quietly replaced by alien pod people, duplicates who look identical but lack emotion. For audiences living through the Cold War, the metaphor was impossible to miss. Was it about communism, conformity, or the crushing fear of losing individuality? In truth, it spoke to all three. The production was lean, with shadowy black and white cinematography that heightened the dread. There were no grand monsters or glowing rockets, only ordinary faces drained of humanity. That simplicity made it all the more chilling. One contemporary review called it a nightmare without theatrics. The most famous line arrives near the end as Kevin McCarthy's desperate doctor screams, "You're next!" into the camera, breaking the fourth wall. Audiences reportedly shuddered, feeling as though the invasion had leapt off the screen into their own neighborhoods. Cheesy in premise, perhaps, but its brilliance lay in restraint. Without special effects or grand spectacle, the film tapped into a universal fear, the idea of losing oneself in a world demanding conformity. Forbidden Planet, 1956. The same year brought a very different vision of science fiction. Forbidden Planet, produced by MGM, was ambitious, colorful, and expensive, a far cry from the low-budget thrillers of its peers. Loosely inspired by Shakespeare's The Tempest, it placed audiences on the distant world of Altair 4, where a stranded crew encounters a mysterious scientist, his daughter, and the secrets of an ancient alien race. The film dazzled viewers with elaborate sets, sweeping CinemaScope visuals, and one of cinema's earliest electronic scores. Robbie the Robot, both comical and commanding, became a pop culture icon. Critics marveled at the ambition, though some found its seriousness heavy-handed. At its heart was a theme perfectly suited for the atomic age, the danger of unchecked power. The scientist Morbius, armed with alien technology, unleashes destructive forces born from his own subconscious. It was a polished echo of the nuclear dilemma, the idea that humanity might not be able to control what it creates. Yes, some of the effects now look quaint, and the dialogue can feel stiff, but the film's boldness made it groundbreaking. A reviewer in Variety noted that it elevates science fiction to the realm of high art, even as audiences chuckled at Robbie's mechanical politeness. Plan 9 from Outer Space, 1959. If there is one film that embodies both the cheesy and the brilliant sides of atomic-age sci-fi, it is Ed Wood's infamous Plan 9 from Outer Space. Released in 1957, it was ridiculed for decades as the worst movie ever made. But over time, audiences came to see something else in it, an earnestness that made it unforgettable. The premise was outlandish. Aliens resurrect Earth's dead to stop humanity from creating a doomsday weapon. What could have been terrifying was undone by wobbling gravestones, obvious stock footage, and visible strings holding up flying saucers. Bela Lugosi appears briefly, but he had died before filming. Wood awkwardly used stand-ins and old clips to complete the role. Critics at the time dismissed it entirely. Yet beneath the cardboard sets was a genuine reflection of Cold War fear, the idea that humankind's own inventions could doom the planet. Ed Wood, limited by budget but not imagination, poured every ounce of ambition into the film. As he once said, "My imagination must be free to roam." Today, Plan 9 is beloved not for perfection, but for passion. Its flaws became part of its charm, a reminder that creativity often flourishes even when resources do not. The Blob, 1958. In 1958, audiences were introduced to a monster unlike any before, not a creature with claws or fangs, but a formless, oozing mass. The Blob was low-budget sci-fi that became a drive-in sensation, launching the career of a young Steve McQueen. The story is almost absurdly simple. A gelatinous red substance crashes to Earth in a meteor, consuming everything it touches and growing larger with each victim. There were no elaborate effects, just silicone and dyes moving across miniature sets, yet the concept was so eerie that it gripped teenage audiences. Part of the film's success came from timing. By the late 50s, drive-ins had become cultural hubs, especially for young people. The Blob, with its youthful cast and catchy theme song, Beware of the Blob fit perfectly into that world. On a deeper level, the Blob represented the fear of unstoppable forces, whether communism spreading across the globe or the invisible danger of nuclear fallout. Critics dismissed it as silly, but audiences loved its slow creeping dread. Looking back, the film is remembered with a smile. Its effects may seem laughable, but its legacy as a cultural touchstone of 50s sci-fi remains. The Tingler, 1959. By the late 1950s, director William Castle had become the master of movie gimmicks. His The Tingler, released in 1959, might be the most famous example. Part horror, part science fiction, it blended campy storytelling with a marketing stunt that has become legend. The film follows a scientist, played by Vincent Price, who discovers a parasitic creature living inside every human spine. This tingler grows stronger when people suppress their screams and can only be weakened if they let the fear out. The premise was already outrageous, but Castle made it unforgettable by wiring theater seats with small buzzers. During key moments, audiences literally felt the tingler in their seats, prompting shrieks and laughter in equal measure. Posters warned, "When the screen screams, you'll scream too if you value your life." Critics were not impressed. Many called the story ludicrous, the creature a rubbery toy that wiggled across the screen. But the public loved the experience. Drive-ins and matinees buzzed with excitement, and The Tingler became a cult hit. In hindsight, the brilliance wasn't in the monster itself, but in the way Castle transformed moviegoing into an event. He understood that science fiction wasn't just about what appeared on screen, it was about how it made people feel. The Time Machine, 1960. In 1960, George Pal brought H.G. Wells's classic The Time Machine to the screen, blending Victorian imagination with Cold War anxiety. Unlike many Atomic Age films, this one dared to look beyond rockets and aliens into humanity's distant future. The story follows a Victorian inventor who builds a machine to travel through time. His journey takes him to the year 800 and 2000, where he discovers the peaceful but passive Eloi and the monstrous subterranean Morlocks. The film's allegory was clear. Civilizations rise and fall, but humanity's flaws endure. Pal's production was ambitious, using elaborate sets and stop-motion effects to depict time's passage. The sequence of a mannequin changing outfits as decades fly by remains a standout. Though some effects now appear dated, the vision captivated audiences. The film won an Academy Award for special effects, rare for sci-fi of the era, yet it carried deeper resonance too. In the shadow of the atomic bomb, the idea of humanity destroying itself and devolving into a fractured species struck a powerful chord. Critics praised its ambition while noting its occasional stiffness. But to audiences, it was both thrilling and sobering, a story that made them consider not just the present, but the far future. Barbarella, 1968. By the late 1960s, the Atomic Age was giving way to something more colorful, chaotic, and psychedelic. Nowhere was that shift more evident than in Roger Vadim's Barbarella, released in 1968 and starring a young Jane Fonda. Unlike the stark paranoia of the 50s, Barbarella embraced camp with both arms. Its story follows a space traveler sent to stop a scientist who threatens the galaxy with a powerful weapon. Along the way, she encounters bizarre landscapes, eccentric characters, and surreal adventures. The film's design was dazzling. Swirling colors, whimsical costumes, and sets that looked more like pop art than outer space. Critics at the time were divided. Some dismissed it as nonsense, while others praised its bold creativity. One headline simply called it the silliest movie ever made. Yet, beneath the camp was something genuinely forward-looking. Barbarella reflected the cultural upheavals of the 1960s, a time when society questioned authority, tradition, and even the future itself. It marked a shift from the rigid fears of the Atomic Age to the freewheeling imagination of the space age. Today, the film is remembered as a cult classic. Its influence can be seen in everything from comic books to modern sci-fi parodies. Cheesy? Without doubt. Brilliant? In the way it captured the spirit of its time? Absolutely. Which of these atomic age sci-fi classics do you think best balances camp with brilliance? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know if you'd like to see more journeys into the golden, glowing past of cinema.